Welcome to the SBP Podcast, the voice of mobile film. I am Susie Botello, and this is episode 54. About a month ago, I received a message about a filmmaker and some actors who wanted to connect with me because they shot a feature film with an iPhone, and they wanted to take part in the International Mobile Film Festival here in San Diego. I gladly connected with them, but I shared our film festival was taking place at the end of April this month. So they told me about the actors and that they had some fame in Hollywood films. And the film that they mentioned, the one that stood out, just happens to be my personal most favorite film and has been for many years. As much as I wanted to include their film in our film festival, the deadline for submissions had passed. It passed at the end of last year. So if any one of you has ever tried to submit a film after a deadline to our film festival, or perhaps one that did not qualify according to the rules, then you may be pleased to know that I still did not accept their film as a submission. But if there was ever a time that I wanted to break the rules, this was that time. I did, however, find the backstory very interesting, and I also have to say that the director of the film, Stef Harris, and his principal actors are incredibly awesome. Our film festival is coming up on April 27th and 28th here in San Diego. Tickets are now on sale, and I'm not kidding. The space is limited. So get your tickets and don't miss out. Go to www.sbp.cc on your web browser and click on tickets. Or you can go to internationalmobilefilmfestival.com. Watch feature and short films shot with smartphones and meet their creators from around the whole world in person right here in San Diego. This episode is a discussion with the director of Blue Moon, filmed in New Zealand. Next week, we will share another discussion with one of the protagonists of the film, Jed Brophy. Stef Harris is a cop on the front lines in New Zealand, and his film, Blue Moon, was the result of a photo that was shot on his iPhone. Join me, and let's listen to his story. Hey everybody, welcome to the SBP Podcast. I am here with Stef Harris. Stef is in New Zealand, and we're here talking with him because, he got in touch with us and told us he made a feature film, and the trailer and the film that I saw was amazing and it was very good. So wanted to share that with every one of you and hopes of inspiring you to make more feature films, but mainly to share your awesome stories, same way that Stef did. Stef, why don't you introduce or let the listeners know where you are and just a touch about the film and then who you are, like how you came to be a filmmaker.
Okay, so my name's Stef. I come from New Zealand. I live in a small town called Motueka, which we've got about 5,000 people here. I had... my day job is I'm a police officer, and I just work a regular uniform patrol. And I very much wanted to make a film, and I was gassing up my patrol car about 4:20 in the morning, and I looked at the petrol station. It was lit up like a spaceship in the night, and I thought it looked quite beautiful. And so without thinking, I took my camera, my police issue iPhone, out of my pocket and took a shot of it. And that picture of the gas station became the founding document of our film.
How did that come to be? Because we all take a lot of pictures all the time. We see we don't see spaceships, but we do see some pretty interesting things, and we just snap a picture, sort of like tucking it into our memory, so we can go back later and check them out. But how did that turn into a story for a film?
Yeah, well, my probably the film that's probably affected me the most would be 2001: Space Odyssey, and this gas station was sitting there lit up in the at 4:20 in the morning in the darkness, and it just looked like a spaceship. It was a space that was lit up, and the rest of the town was asleep, and just this place was there, and it just occurred to me that it was a perfect place to set a drama. It was also pre-lit, which was nice. So then from there, I went and developed a story that could take place in the petrol station.
And when you developed that story, were you thinking it was going to be a film, or were you just... Well, do you mind if I ask you something, and just let me back up a little bit? How does a police officer become a writer and creatively think about even making a movie? Not even going into the whole iPhone thing yet.
Yeah. Okay, well, if we back the truck right up, I started as a teenager with Super 8 movies, and made little 6 and 7 minute short films when I was like 14 years old. And we had on this is back in the 1970s. We had on television then a television kids film competition, and I remember that Peter Jackson won this contest with he made a film about a cyclops, a plasticine cyclops that was chasing some kids, and as I say, Peter won it, and I got a lesser prize for another film I made. And so that's where I sort of got the enthusiasm for film. And then as a 17-year-old, I made a 16mm film, which was 24 minutes long. It was a drama, but that was lost in the sound recording studio. This is back in the days of magnetic soundtracks. That studio went bust, and my film was lost forever. So,
kind of like things that happen these days with hard drives, right?
Yeah. But in those days, it was very difficult to make a backup of 16mm film. And then I settled down and became a police officer and raised a family. And then about 2005, I had a midlife crisis and went ahead and made my first feature film, and that was called The Waimate Conspiracy, and it was a Maori land claim story, which I shot in 6 days on a broadcast video camera. Those days, it was cutting edge to make a feature film on a video camera, but we think nothing of it these days.
But it only took you 6 days?
Yeah, it was basically my plan was to I invited the actors that I wanted to come to this small town called Waimate, and there I'd rented a scout camp, so I had accommodation for them, and of course I had a kitchen, and so we fed them and accommodated them for the week, and it was the Christmas holidays, so I just said, if you guys come and help me for this week, we're going to make a feature film. And so we did. We pulled it off in 6 days flat.
That's really interesting. Do any actors ever say no to you, Stef?
It's kind of a bit of an industry secret, but if you write the sort of story that the actors desperately want to work on, then they will move heaven and earth to work with you, and that's certainly what I've found, and I've always found it easy to attract actors.
I've actually had actors as guests on the show here, and that's actually what they've said to me too. Because I've asked them, what made you want to be, especially the more professional actors, and what made you want to be, or even consider being, in a film that was shot with a phone? And they always say, not that you shot that film with a phone, but they always say it's the story, and if it's a really good story, then we definitely want to be a part of it. So that makes sense. But you got to get them to read the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that might not be a bad segue to talk a little bit about the actors that are in this film in Blue Moon.
Yeah, so Mark Hadlow, I've known Mark for probably 35 years. He was in the first film that I made, the 16mm one that was lost forever.
Wow! So you've known each other since you were kids, huh?
Yeah, that's right. And then many years later, when I got to the Waimate Conspiracy, what actually happened was I'd written a novel called the Waikakamukau Conspiracy, and I asked Mark to come to the book launch and launch the novel. And as a result of that, when he read it, he got very enthusiastic and thought it should be made into a film. So so Mark and I sort of went in for a long time. We're trying to get that film made, and eventually we did shoot it. But yeah, so when it came to Blue Moon, this film kind of went round the other way. It was Mark and I and Jed were talking about, what can we do? We'd like to work together. We'd like to make a film, and many times we'd said, why don't we just shoot something on a phone? And we'd never been serious about it. And I started to think, if we turn this around, if we were going to shoot a film on a phone in maybe a week.
Where did you even hear about shooting movies on the phones, by the way?
I had seen the one. I was aware of a couple of high-profile films that had been made on cell phones.
Okay.
And there was
the ones that got the most media attention. You mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was one that was in South by Southwest. I'm just trying to think, in Sundance perhaps. I'm just trying to think of the name of it.
Was it a more recent one, or was this back in 2015? Or
it was on an iPhone 5, and
I think you mean Tangerine, maybe.
Tangerine, yes.
Okay.
I found out about Tangerine.
Yeah.
And so we talked about it a little bit, and and I said, so if we did it, how would we do it? And that's when I thought we needed to have a single location, and we needed to shoot in real time. So this story goes from 4:20 in the morning to 6 o'clock in the morning, which gives us no changes of location, no changes of costume, no changes of lighting even, which gave us a straight run. So basically, we were doing a play and filming it.
And you had no room for errors that way either.
The gas station is a working business, and it closes at midnight and opens again at 5 in the morning. So we had 5 hours each night for 6 nights.
So you shared the photo, or you shared the screenplay with Mark, right?
Yeah, initially I wrote an 8-page treatment, and with the photograph of the location, and I sent it off to Mark and said, "What do you think?" And he was very enthusiastic, and so was Jed. So as a result, I created a screenplay, and then every month I wrote a new draft, building up for a year up to the shoot date.
How did Jed come into the picture?
So Jed, I met Jed through Mark. The three of us had worked on a few proposed projects in the past, and we definitely wanted to work together on something. So those were the building blocks I had. I knew I had Mark and Jed. I knew how how they worked together, how they would look on screen, and what they could do. So I built
we haven't
a story
shared with,
around them.
yeah, we haven't shared with anyone yet where they may recognize these two guys.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, so both Mark and Jed are dwarves in the Hobbit series of films, but they've also been in Lord of the Rings, and Mark was in King Kong, and Jed's been in all kinds of pretty much all of Peter Jackson's movies.
So you've seen them on the big screen, literally, not on the iPhone.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So go on. So then you had various drafts, and then you finalized it. And then, how did you get the location? I mean, I know everything was centered around that location, right?
Yeah, that was my dream location that I focused on, and eventually the time came I had to go and find out who owned it and what was it going to be possible. So I went and introduced myself to the owner, a guy called Brett Stevens. And lucky for me, it turned out he was the stunt driver in one of the earliest New Zealand films, Shake a Run. Huh. And so Brett had he had been the stand-in for Leif Garrett, who was the star of that film, and had to wear a long flowing blonde wig and drive all these stunt cars. And and he'd retired from the film industry and wound up owning a garage in Motueka. So when I told him what I planned to do, he just threw me the keys to the building, and that was that.
Just do it, right?
Yeah. He thought it would be a great thing for our town, and he was happy to do whatever he could do. And he also helped me with locating things we needed, like cranes, a couple of vehicles, and just other bits and pieces. And he plays a part in the film. He's Day Shift Dave right at the end, who takes over from Mark Hadlow after the long night.
Oh, cool! So you have that's pretty cool to know.
Yeah. It's when you're making a film in a small town, it's about trying to be inclusive and get people enthusiastic and joining in the effort to make it.
And you also have, is it Mark's real daughter that's also in the film?
That's correct. We auditioned. There's about 30 young women for the role, and we had we'd done several days of auditions, and what happened? And I think it was Mark showed me a tape of because Olivia was in another. She was in Auckland at the time, so she'd done a tape on an iPhone and sent it in, and it was there was no question that she was the daughter.
Yeah. And her dad would vouch for that.
Yeah.
So now you had the location. Did you have to rearrange anything, or how did that come about? Because I mean, there's a little bit. I mean, it's not an actual action film, but there's a little bit of action in the film.
Yeah, we had we had the gas station, and we used, because obviously when you have just a single location, you have to think how are we going to keep this interesting, and so we used every square inch of that gas station. We had scenes behind the counter, we had scenes in the back office, we had scenes in the toilet, in the storeroom, at every part of the store area, and then outside and on the forecourt. Yeah. And then across the road, we built a little park. There's sort of a clock tower there, but we trucked in some trees and boxes and some park benches and a telephone box, and we pre-lit that little park area so that we actually had 8 lights over there, but we just flicked one switch and they all came on, and that was pre-lit like a stage, because I just didn't have time to light shot by shot.
Right.
So my idea was to have a pre-lit sound stage so that we could flip one switch and start filming.
Very cool. And now let me ask you something. When it came to, because there's a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been on film set. I was a script supervisor actually on film sets, and so I can't imagine how much of that dialogue was it. There was room for ad libbing, right? Or
It seems like that, doesn't it? This is different. I mean, I'm a writer first and foremost. I've got interested in films only to serve my desire to write, and you can see this as a writer's film because it's so talky, and yeah, I wanted it to feel like it's ad libbed.
yeah,
but it's absolutely scripted.
It's amazing
through the whole thing, and the technique I used was neither of them ever directly answers what the other one's asking. So they're always obfuscating and shying away and never quite mentioning what it is that's at the heart of their conflict. Because these are two guys who are meeting in their 50s and they haven't seen each other since they were teenagers. And,
maybe now it's a good time to share with the listeners just a little bit about the synopsis of the story.
Sure. So basically, Horace Jones is a failed businessman who's in quite a lot of financial trouble, and he is working the night shift in his gas station that's going bankrupt. And he owes a lot of money, and he's got a lot of bills, and he's in a lot of trouble. and his daughter turns up. And she's very suspicious because he's been working in the gas station, hasn't told the family that he's doing that. He's pretending that he's still in China on a business deal. So he manages to calm his daughter down, and it's 4:00 in the morning. So he gets her to go to sleep in the back storeroom where he's been sleeping when he gets the chance, and he says he'll drive her back to university in the morning. When a fairly dangerous-looking thug turns up at the gas station, goes into the bathroom and dies in there, and that leaves Horace with a bit of a dilemma because he doesn't want to be found out. He's got the Inland Revenue looking for him. That's the tax department, and so he decides to drag the body across the street and leave it in the park over there, so that he won't be dragged into an investigation. And then he finds that the guy had $500,000 of drug money on him, and of course, foolishly decides to keep that to solve his financial problems. And as a result of that decision, a drug enforcer, Darren Cates, turns up at the gas station to find the money, and it's the same Darren Cates that he went to Christ College with, and they both sang in the choir together. And so the whole rest of the film is these two guys with this dilemma, and the fact that they were at college together 40 years ago, and something shocking happened at college, which they never quite neither man actually mentions.
There's a lot in the story that's really interesting. I'm just surprised, to be quite honest with you, that there was no ad libbing, because you shot it in about 30 hours, right? So you really only had one take, basically. Not that you shot it all in one take, but you didn't have much time to go back and do take after take after take due to the lines. And they had to study all the dialogue, right, in order to get this done fairly quickly.
Yeah, that's right. There was, let's see, about the first 20 minutes of the film is Horace on his own, and his daughter arrives. But then after that, there's a good hour, which is the interaction with the two actors,
Yeah.
and those two actors are in this tense conflict for an hour until it's resolved. And that hour, we broke down into about, I think it was 8 bites, into 8 scenes. And Mark and Jed learned those, each of those 8 scenes, they learned those like a stage production, so that they could perform the whole 8 minute in one go. And what I tried to do as a director was just get out of their way. So because we had the iPhone was on a handheld gimbal, I wanted the camera to move around, to slide around as if we were just an observer, just someone that happened to be there and that they didn't notice. And I tried to let them go for the whole scene without interrupting. And many times, they would do the whole 8 minutes, and then I'd come in, get them to do it again, and I'd come in and shoot it in close-ups, and we'd get through quite a lot of footage quite fast.
Yeah, because I imagine, I mean, there also was a lot of blocking, and it probably helped a lot to have that, just you with the gimbal and the iPhone instead of, the whole big rig.
Yeah, absolutely. If we had put down tripod legs or started to pre-light to light shots and scenes individually, we would have been dead in the water. We never would have finished the film. We wouldn't have got close. So yeah, absolutely. Key to us succeeding was for this to be a handheld, and it makes the style of the film so much more interesting to watch. But because the iPhone, we couldn't pull focus.
Yeah.
So we needed to move the camera and to keep it interesting.
And aesthetically, it does look great. Sometimes that's done. I mean, there's no doubt that part of that has to be done during production, and some of it can be done in post-production. Did you guys use an app during production?
Yes, we used Filmic Pro.
Okay.
And that worked very well for us. I'm just thinking one of the horror stories we had, because we're in a gas station at night.
Yeah.
It's dark outside, which is great. Nighttime's a special effect, which we got for free. But
you have a mirror effect with the windows.
Yeah,
so.
But every window, wrapping right around the building is a mirror.
Yeah.
And so we ended up with the crew, because we got all these stands with food and chocolates and things. We ended up with everybody ducking down behind all these stands for every take. And even then, we still got reflections in the glass, which we had to try to be aware of and get rid of them. It was absolutely filming in a house of mirrors. And the other thing we had that we didn't expect is we had, when we got there, the sound guys, when they plugged their gear in, of course we had about 10 fridges in the room.
Yeah.
Refrigerators and freezers and pie warmers and
the lights that are usually there also hum a lot.
Yeah, all these things. And so we ended up, we had to take all the, we unplugged all the fridges.
Yeah.
And we took the ice from out the front of the place and we packed it down so that to try to preserve all the products. But we still ended up with soggy ice creams every day for a week, which the owner forgave us for.
Should have just invited a few kids to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Lucky we had a very good sound engineer.
Yeah.
When I was raising funds to make this happen, I put there were a number of stories in our local newspaper in Motueka, and the guy contacted me, Ben Dunker, and he was a sound engineer, and he'd recently retired from Hollywood so that he could run a luxury lodge here in Motueka. We're right on the edge of the Abel Tasman National Park, which is like a forest on the edge of a beach. It's a beautiful place. Yeah, so Ben had come here to retire from the film industry, and his last film was *Inglourious Bastards* with Quentin Tarantino, and he volunteered to help me with this project.
Like I said, no one says no to you, right?
No, well, it was only for a week, and he just thought it would be fun for his colleagues and friends back in Germany to see that he was in New Zealand living the the Kiwi lifestyle, but still making the odd film.
Right, on phones, on an iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. Another person that came out of the woodwork was Dan Henner, who was the set designer for Lord of the Rings, who won the Oscar for that film.
Wow.
And Dan is also has a home locally here, and I contacted him, and I needed some help with special effects with because we do have we have a shooting and a bit of blood, and we have a couple of guns going off and things, and so Dan helped with all those things.
Very cool. Now, what about so you're a police officer, but did you use props for guns, or did you just use real guns?
We let's see, we used for the shotgun, that was a real gun that we sourced through Dan. He has quite a collection of guns for film props. Cool. and so that was good. And we used blank ammunition to so it's basically ammunition with no projectile, gunpowder and cork.
Jed does some pretty good acting, and so does Mark when they're fighting. But it's almost like watching two high schoolers have it out. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it turned out to be more serious than what it appears to be, because it just seems like a little bit of a scuffle, but it gets pretty serious.
Yeah, we had to have this fight scene, and I didn't want to have just a standard movie fight. Right. Quite often in films, when it gets to the fist fight, that's when people go and make a cup of tea, because it's just the same fight that we've all seen over and over. So I wanted this fight to actually tell a story, and the story was that Horace Jones is a guy who's been a businessman. He's got 6 children, and when he gets in a fight, it's not going to end well, because he doesn't know what he's doing. And Darren Cates is a gang enforcer, and he's been doing this his whole life, and so it's a very uneven affair, and that's what I want it to look like. I want it to look like what happens when your dad tries to stand up to a gang member. It just doesn't work.
Well, I don't want to give away, too much of the film itself as far as that's concerned, but I do like all these stories of how everything came together. But one thing I think our listeners also learn from with these are, the things that can go wrong, and how you take care of them. You're a professional, right? Filmmaker. But some of the people that are making films with iPhones do not. They have to make a lot of mistakes before they get there.
Yeah.
But, the one thing I can tell you in having had this film festival for so long, and we do Q&As and things like that, and then there's the podcast, is that there's a lot to learn on this, whether you're a novice, or whether you're a professional. Sometimes it's been the case in our film festival where someone who's never stepped on a film set before but has made maybe 3 or 4 films with their iPhone can teach something to someone who's a professional filmmaker whose first time filmmaking with an iPhone or any kind of a smartphone. Was there any instance like that you had there?
Yeah, we were all out of our depth, trying to do something that's seemingly impossible. To pull together a feature film in 6 nights, and short nights at that. It was a struggle, and yeah, all of us were sort of pushing ourselves to our absolute limits of our ability, but we got there in the end.
Was there what other surprises did you have that you didn't expect? Because or maybe I should flip that question around. What surprises did you have on the good side that you thought maybe you were going to have a problem because it was a smartphone as opposed to, your traditional camera, but you found out that, hey, that still worked pretty well with the phone?
Yeah, no, the phone didn't pose us any problems at all. We were worried about battery capacity, and we had I think we had 3 phones available to us, and so that we could keep swapping the batteries, and that didn't seem to be a problem. We were concerned about overheating, and once again, that never came to pass. We had a data wrangler on set the whole time, so that we would offload the
footage,
onto a computer as we went, and also look for continuity errors as well at the same time. So we didn't have any problems at all with the phone.
That's awesome. And of course you did do the sound. You captured all the sound externally, right?
We did. We captured that separately, and we had that very, very experienced sound recordist working on that. So that was very, very good for us.
And you didn't have to go back and do any retakes or anything, huh?
We had no potential for that, and as a result, we had to be very careful to get everything.
That's amazing. So let me ask you another couple of questions regarding you more than this. So you said, so I'm just a little curious here, and maybe some of our listeners are too, because it sounds like you grew up. It sounds like your dream was to be a movie maker, right? A filmmaker. What made you decide to go into being a policeman?
Yeah, well, I guess when I at that time the film industry in New Zealand was there hardly was one, and there was very little opportunity back in those days. There's an awful lot more opportunities now than there were then, and it's just over the years the dream has never sort of completely died for me. So I keep coming back to it and thinking, well, maybe I'll just make one more film, yeah.
That was my next question. Speaking about one more film, do you plan to make more films now that you've already made one with a smartphone? Do you plan on making more films with the phones?
Definitely. I have more stories that I want to tell. So yeah, I will definitely make another film, whether it's with a smartphone or with another type of camera. But I'll definitely make another film.
This one particular film. Well, actually, I should say your whole experience, right, Stef? What advice would you give to someone who's never made a film before, doesn't have the camera, doesn't know any actors or anything like that, but they have stories. We all have stories, and they have a vision for their story that could be made into a film. What advice would you give to them?
Well, first, I think just go ahead and do it. Don't let anything get in the way of that. with the first film that I directed, the Waimata Conspiracy. When I went into it, I was very aware that all the people involved knew more about filmmaking than I did. The camera guy, the editor, the technical people, they all had superior technical knowledge, but I knew that I knew more about my film than any of them, and it was my story, and I wanted to make it. And you've just got to take a gamble on yourself and believe that you can do it. Making a film is really a series of small challenges. It's just there's a lot of them.
And sometimes it's, once you step into the water, right, you find things and you find ways and people that come along to give you a hand, but you have to take those steps.
Yeah. You'll always find collaborators, people that want to help. I mean, where I am, we have a group, a club of filmmakers, and those guys go out and they make short films every weekend, and they have a wealth of knowledge and equipment, and they were very willing to get involved and help along the way. And you'll always find those people wherever you are.
Feature films, you were just talking about making short films on the weekends. But what about feature films? What would you say is the biggest challenge between a short film and a feature film, no matter what you're shooting on?
Well, it's my personal opinion that every film is 60% story. And at the writing stage, you can do more to improve your film than at any other stage. In fact, I think in the shoot is the time that you have almost no potential to correct your mistakes, because you're so busy just shooting the film. You need to have made all your decisions ahead of time. And then when you get to the edit, you have a little bit of room there to try and correct your errors.
When you went about to make this film, right? You said you used Filmmaking Pro, you used a gimbal and things like that. Did you find out about the gear? Did you do any testing and then realize you needed gear and then shot it, or did you already know about the gear and what you needed, and then was that part of the, okay, I can make a feature film because I know I have these tools available?
Yeah, so I relied heavily on my cinematographer, Ryan O'Rourke. He's also a policeman and
right.
also a cinematographer.
Because if you want to be a filmmaker in New Zealand, you have to be in the police force, right?
Well, it's just that some of my friends are.
Right.
that's their other interest. And we've just gravitated together. All the police in the film, of which I think there's 6, they're all real police and first-time actors. Yeah, so I said to Ryan, we're thinking of making this film on iPhone, and it was him that went and did all the study, and he came back to me and said we need this Moondog anamorphic lens. So I got hold of that, and we needed the gimbal, and so we got that. And we practiced. We wanted to have some long tracking shots in and out of the gas station across the forecourt.
Yeah.
And we tried with a shopping cart, but the problem was it jiggered around too much.
Yeah.
So I went to the retirement home, and they had this rickshaw, and it was an e-bike, but on the front it had a 2-seater sort of a couch, and you could. And what happened? They sit people on the front seat and just drive them around so they get a look around the neighbourhood. And so I borrowed that, and we put the camera on that rickshaw, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah, back in my day, this was years and years and years ago, we used to go to the San Diego Blood Bank and borrow a wheelchair, and we'd take it away on the weekend to shoot some commercials and things like that.
Yeah.
And they were very smooth because, they're wheelchairs, so there's, fragile people, writing them, so they want them to be very smooth. We felt like we were so tricky.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't matter how you get the effect.
Yeah.
If it works, it's great.
So you had the gear, and then you just trusted everything, and went ahead and shot everything. I can't tell you enough how great the acting was between Jed and Mark, and of course his daughter also brought something to the story, just from her acting skills as well. Was she also an actor before, or?
Yes, she had done stage acting.
Okay.
I don't know if she'd done any short films, but this was certainly her first feature film. So
I'm finding that a lot of stage actors are making their own films and acting in them. Um, in my experience with mobile filmmaking, and I'm wondering if it has to do with the fact that you don't have to have all these, the big equipment and things like that. Might be something some of our listeners might be interested in with
yeah,
acting.
yeah. The thing about acting, I think, there is a big difference between stage acting and acting for film.
Yeah.
And the way I like to explain it is in stage acting, if you look out the window to see if a car's arrived in the driveway, you simply have to turn your head in the right direction. But in film acting, you have to turn your head and focus on the car, or else the camera will pick up that the lens of your eye didn't move.
Yeah.
So it's that's the difference is, and but I think there's, I've seen some amazing performances on stage, and in this film we tried to sort of to slow the film down to have the time to find those performances, and because it's in one location, it's the bulk of the film is really the two characters talking. So there was time for a really for them to really show what they can do, and I'm very pleased with the performances.
Yeah, I mean, there's also this other factor, which is, in on stage, right? When you're performing, a scene, you run through the whole scene, even if or the same one act, whatever it may be, but it's continuous. Whereas in film, it's really broken up. I mean, I was telling you I was a script supervisor with continuity and everything, and the one thing I'll never forget was the day that we were shooting the second part of the same scene, and the wardrobe came to me and asked me, was the actor's shirt, was it tucked in when he walks away, or was it untucked? Because they were having a bit of an argument over it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was 6 days ago, literally, so I had to go and look through a pile of my script notes, because I was very detailed, and I actually came up with that. And I also used to take photos every time something changed. But on a rehearsal, they're able to sort of, it's not just that, but they're also able to stay in character easier. It doesn't get broken up.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why we shot in long takes with both actors on the scenes, because they feed off each other, working together. And in a traditional film, you'd probably set the camera up and bring the actor on to do one side of the conversation, and then do a reset to turn the camera around.
Yeah.
So we didn't do any of that. We did it live, and it certainly helps the actors. It's much more natural for them.
Yeah, I really do think there's a lot of value in the way that you guys shot it, for sure. Is there anything else that? Well, actually, there is. Your film has already been in one film festival that I know of that won an award or something, right?
Um, No.
No?
Which one are you thinking of?
Well, because there's a poster, right, that you sent me. Didn't it have laurels or something, or was it just submitted to one?
So it has screened in the New Zealand Film Festival.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry, but it hasn't won any awards.
Well,
It's
that
just
you know of yet.
yeah, it's just a festival, but there's no awards in the New Zealand Film
Yeah.
Festival.
Oh, that's really interesting. I did not know that. So the award is screening it, right? Basically.
It's that it was shown.
I like that. That's pretty cool. And so it's been in there, and then you're running it through different festivals. So that's fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, not really. We're just getting the film out there. We're hoping that people are going to have the opportunity to see it and enjoy it.
So we're going to share with all of you guys, all our listeners. We're going to share some links, so you can watch Stef, we also write an article when we do our podcast. So we're going to share the your link to your trailer,
Yes,
and you have a Facebook page, right?
yes.
And what is the shout out to the Facebook page, just for people who don't want to even read right now?
The Facebook page is called Blue Moon -NZ Film.
And then you're in New Zealand, and Jed, does all your actors actually, they're from New Zealand, but do they all live there, or?
Yes, everyone's living in New Zealand at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So so everybody watch the trailer. It's very intriguing. It makes you want to, go to the movies and watch it, but you'll have to wait until it's released, right?
That's right. Yep.
So, and when did you film it? When did you complete the filming, I should say?
So we finished in August 2018.
Wow. So it's basically, it's not even a year away.
No.
Awesome.
No. We're still pursuing the festival circuit, and hopefully it will be online sometime soon.
Great. And what is do you have any hint you can share with us about what story we might see from you the next time?
The next film, it will be a comedy. I'm working on a comedy.
And Dark Horse Films, that's your company?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, so we'll share with everybody your website as well.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to say goodbye to our listeners. Would you like to say goodbye to our listeners?
Yes, thank you for listening, and good luck with all your film productions, etc.
Great. All right, listeners, you know what you got to do. You got to make a feature film now.